Call the meeting to order, please. This is the Village of Riverside Board of Trustees regular meeting for Thursday, August 20th, 2020. The time is 7:11. Please call the roll.
President Sells.
Here.
President Sells.
Here.
Trustee Collins.
Here.
Trustee Jisa.
Here.
Trustee Gallegos.
Trustee Gallegos.
Here.
Trustee Hannon.
Here.
Trustee Evans.
Here.
Trustee Pollock.
Here.
Village Manager Francis.
Here.
Community Development Director Abt.
Here.
Also present Village Clerk Haley.
Thank you very much. And for those of you who couldn't hear it, Trustee Gallegos is attending remotely this evening because of a physical illness preventing his attendance. So if you'll please join us for the pledge. Thank you, and welcome to those of you in the audience who are joining us this evening. If at any time during the meeting you would like to address the board for any reason, just let me know. And if you could make your comments from the podium so that the folks at home can also hear and see what you have to say. We now will move on to public comment. Is there anyone here who would like to address the board at this time? Hearing none, I think we have a couple of public comments that were submitted remotely. I'd ask our village clerk to read those, please.
The first comment is from Greg Alm, and he says, at the July 16th Board of Trustee meeting, Trustee Collins stated that she would be in favor of an ordinance that says we fly no flags on our flagpole other than the American flag and the Illinois flag. To follow up on that, will you commit to putting up for a vote in your September meeting a village ordinance that would allow the flying of only the American and Illinois flags on any village property in perpetuity and without exception? Thank you, Greg Alm. The second public comment that we received is from Jim Sullivan. My name is Jim Sullivan, Riverside resident with my wife and daughters for 32 years. Unfortunately, I am out of town and unable to attend tonight. I wish to speak on behalf of Trustee Gallegos' motion to fly the first responders flag. I think it is highly appropriate to honor these brave men and women who do not seek the limelight or a pat on the back or even a parade, yet selflessly serve for our protection. The significance that flag means, the significance of that flag means as much to me, means as much to some people as the gay pride flag means to others, despite the village president's opinions. To use the president and most board members' logic regarding the Blue Lives Here First Responders flag being co-opted by alt-right groups, I offer this. The Black Lives Matter banners, signs, and movement seem to have been co-opted by left-wing Antifa groups, even used as spears and clubs at various peaceful protests around the country, and specifically against the Chicago PD at the Columbus statue in Grant Park, where 49 were injured and 12 hospitalized after being ambushed by a BLM protest march. There has been more property damage, looting, arson, and injuries under the BLM banner than any alt-right examples you can cite. So much so that BLM has sarcastically been referred to as burn, loot, murder. So logically, BLM signs and protests should be labeled as divisive and not allowed and considered as a big expletive, to quote a speaker, to those of us who are law-abiding and support our police and firefighters. As a direct example of the intolerance of the BLM movement, I offer you this. I had a Blue Lives Matter sign on our front lawn. It was stolen in the night and replaced with a cute bubble-lettered BLM sign I'm sure was done by one of the over 100 kids in the BLM march a month ago, but on the back of the sign was written, expletive 12 ACAB, your white privilege is showing. Well, if serving 23 years in the Marine Corps and 15 years as a federal officer protecting these woke people's ability to protest doesn't allow me to display how I feel, then I take BLM as an insult to me as an American. The worst part of this is now my wife and daughters fear retaliation towards them on our property, which I will not tolerate. So, President Sells, if you and the other board members still want to stand behind your logic of dismissing the first responder flag and not banishing BLM signs or marches, you are all hypocrites. I welcome your response and will make every effort to attend September's meeting. Jim Sullivan.
Thank you. So we'll move on now, and just to reiterate, if we come to any specific agenda item, you're always welcome to address those items as we get to them. So just raise your hand and let me know. So next up is the reports of village officers. My report. The only thing I would like to mention tonight is, and I'm glad that Mr. Uphues is here because he's been doing great reporting on this. You know, we are seeing an uptick in cases, in COVID-19 cases in Riverside and their surrounding communities. And I just want to reiterate to everyone, especially with school going back, and the kids, and luckily RB's going to be doing remote. But the reason these cases are going up is because collectively we are letting our guard down. And I know I can say this specifically for myself. I've caught myself that I'm not washing my hands the way I was 2 months ago. I'm not being as religious with the mask as I was 2 months ago. And you know, we can't afford to do that. We need to realize that the virus is at its worst, it's most infectious when it's in pre-symptomatic and asymptomatic people. So we don't know at any given time whether or not we have the virus. And so this mask is not to protect me, it's to protect you. So I just want to encourage all of our residents to recommit ourselves to the various things that we know we need to do. Trustee Gallegos is showing us an example tonight. He didn't feel well, he stayed home. Wash your hands, wear the mask, socially distance, avoid crowds. If we do this, we can drive these numbers back down. If we don't do it, we're going to have a long and very troubling fall and winter. Our lives and the lives of the people that we care about depend on this. So let's recommit ourselves to defeating this virus. And that's all I have on my report this evening. Manager Francis.
I have one item that I wanted to mention to the board and to the residents. A very big thank you for public safety personnel and PW personnel, more specifically, obviously, fire department, public works, and the police department for our unprecedented storm on August 10th. From that storm, 12.5 truckloads of wood chips were generated. It took quite some time for public works to make the rounds to get all of those branches and tree limbs that fell on the ground picked up, chipped, and they're available, I'm certain, still at Public Works. So if there is interest in wood chips, please go out. Make sure you're wearing masks, though, when you go over to Public Works, and they're open during business hours. More specifically, I wanted to extend gratitude to Chief Buckley, who was giving me regular reports as it relates to the outages. I saw my first live wire with branches on it starting on fire before my very eyes when they started to liven different wires throughout the village. That was quite the experience, I will tell you. But as the outage was happening, he notified me before the storm even rolled in and said, you know, we really need to notify residents about making sure if there's items that can be lifted up by the high winds to keep them secure. So we did send out a notification to residents. We posted on social media. So I'm hoping that that really helped residents to realize that there was a pretty significant storm coming through. We were able to get out that information because Chief Buckley participated in a conference call with National Weather Service. So all of these different pieces at play, while we did have a tremendous number of residents without power, if it were not for his diligence in working with ComEd and making sure that his personnel was available to ensure that ComEd crews could basically liven back up wires and make the repairs, we wouldn't have gotten our residents back online quite as quickly as we did. And some residents, it did take 3 days. I will tell you, though, that there was a one-man crew going around the village trying to get us back online as quickly as possible. So I did want to thank personnel for their efforts during that unprecedented storm. That is the end of my report.
Let me circle back just a second to mine because I meant to mention this. We got started a little bit late tonight for this meeting, and the reason we got started late is because prior to this meeting, we had a community conversation with our Riverside Police Department. We had the Riverside Command staff, we had Chief Buckley, Chief Weitzel, Deputy Chief Gutchick, and Lieutenant Lara here. And we had a really nice crowd. It was a very extensive and pretty detailed conversation about the police department, policies, training, how you become a police officer in Riverside. So if you're interested in those topics, I would encourage you to watch that meeting that was immediately before this one. It was an hour long, and I think you'd find a lot of really interesting information in it. So with that, I'll move on to the approval of the consent agenda. On the agenda this evening, ratify the voucher list of bills August 6, 2020. The voucher list of bills August 20, 2020. Approve the Village Board of Trustees regular meeting minutes for July 16, 2020. Review and file the Historical Commission meeting minutes of May 18, 2020. The Landscape Advisory Commission meeting minutes of June 9, 2020 and July 14, 2020. The Preservation Commission meeting minutes of June 11 and July 9, 2020. The Community Development, Finance, Fire, Police, and Public Works Department's monthly reports for July 2020. Also, a motion to approve a special event application for the Curbside Cuisine Food Truck event that we'll hear a little bit more about later. A motion to approve an amendment to School-Age Child Program Intergovernmental Agreement between Riverside School District 96 and the Village of Riverside. We'll also hear more about that later. A resolution authorizing the sale or disposal of personal property owned by the Village of Riverside, and a resolution approving a construction engineering services agreement for federal participation supplement number 1 in the amount of $37,734.94 with Thomas Engineering Group for the Berry Point Road, Forest Avenue, Herrick Road Street Improvement Project. I would ask for a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Hannon.
Second.
Second by Mr. Pollock. Please call the roll.
Trustee Collins.
Aye.
Trustee Jisa.
Aye.
Trustee Gallegos.
Aye.
Trustee Pollock.
Aye.
Trustee Evans.
Aye.
Trustee Hannon.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on now to reports of departments, commissions, and trustee liaisons. Are there any liaison reports this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on to the departments. We have first an update from the Parks and Rec Department of upcoming programs and events. Director Malchiodi.
Good evening, President Sells, Village Trustees, and Village Manager Francis, and thank you for providing the opportunity for me to highlight some of the things that the department and I have been working on during this unprecedented time, along with some upcoming programs. I think one thing we can all agree on is that since March, everyone's life has been impacted greatly, and as a community experienced anxiety and uncertainty. During these times, we recognize that families need to feel safe and comfortable. We are able to provide that along with a sense of normalcy through our programs and events. The one thing that I want to make clear is that the decisions that we make and the programs that we offer are based on safety and quality. The department follows the Illinois Department of Public Health directives and policies strictly. We will never take chances with our residents' health. We will never overpromise or compromise on those ideals so that participants can feel safe in the product that we are providing. We have proven success through our farmers market, our summer camp, our drive-in movie event, and recent in-person programming. And we have provided these services without incident. This consistency is not only what residents should expect from the department, it's the quality they deserve. It will never be a question of convenience or reluctance on the part of this department. It will always be about providing safety and quality. I want to give a large amount of credit and thanks to the Parks and Recreation team who were able to pivot quickly and respond to state guidelines and needs of the community that seem to change almost daily. We have been planning for multiple contingencies since February, knowing that they may never happen, but also knowing that we needed to be ready and respond quickly. The team was able to craft curriculum, engage the public through our Facebook page and e-flash system, and assist in developing policies and procedures throughout this entire process. We were aware of the challenges, but we knew that we could provide a program or event in a safe manner, that we were obligated to provide that to the community. So our mindset quickly became, we can't offer our normal programs, so what can we offer and how? Online programming was offered when no other options existed and included our Zoom with the Bunny, art classes for young children, and a yoga class that is still online and going strong. This strategy was certainly evident during our 3rd and 4th of July, where with the help of the Friends of the Fourth, village departments, and Riverside TV, we were able to observe Riverside traditions in the best way we could. Seeing families in their yards celebrating with us was truly inspirational. While some communities canceled all of their special events completely, we created new ones, like the drive-in movie. We also worked with the Farmers Market Committee, our health inspector, and state agencies to figure out a way to hold our farmers market, which is averaging over 400 visitors each week. With our camp revamp, we knew that we had to create a culture of caring and awareness regarding public health concerns. With temperature checks, wearing masks, washing hands, maintaining physical distancing, they all became part of the program. Counselors found a way to not only incorporate these healthy practices, they also made them fun and second nature. And I would like to think that the children who attended our program will be better prepared for the upcoming school year. We have initiated What's Going On Wednesdays and ramped up the number of program offerings that are rolled out each week on Facebook and e-flash, knowing that even though school is going back, there are supplemental needs in the community that people want to see. You will see popular programs and also new programs taught by full-time staff, including myself. I will be teaching a class that I started when I arrived here in 2003 that will cover drama and improvisation. Soccer has been modified, but registration is going on now. Our fall softball league has new protocols, but will take place as scheduled. And of course, we are continuing our partnership with District 96 to not only provide all district families, but also teachers, structured supervision, and online learning assistance during the current hybrid schedule. And we can quickly pivot to provide services if schools move to full remote. Based on the success of the first event, we scheduled a second drive-in movie, graciously sponsored by Flood Brothers and with the cooperation of St. Mary's Church. It is scheduled for tomorrow night, and as of today, there were a few spots left, so it'll be a perfect night if you'd still like to register. We've also been working closely with the Economic Development Commission and Director Abt on a new event called Curbside Cuisine. This will be a food truck event that will also highlight local businesses. It will be held at Centennial Park by the Water Tower on August 29th from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. We expect up to 4 to 6 food trucks and at least 2 local vendors. We realize that, again, this was an event that it will not be in the final form, but was very important to promote and schedule the inaugural event so that we can create it as an annual event in the best way possible. We will follow the same guidelines that we did for our farmers market with spacing, lineups, one-way grab-and-go market, and we hope it will be a successful foray into this annual event. Another issue we are well aware of is the professional and financial impact that this pandemic has had on residents. And we wanted to mention that in addition to scholarship opportunities, we also have flexible employment opportunities for anyone interested or in need during this time. Rest assured that until we can serve the community in the manner that we did, we will continue to innovate and serve the community in every way that we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Do anybody have any questions for Mr. Malchiodi? Great work. What's the movie?
Field of Dreams.
One of the best. Next up, we have an update from the Police Department on Scottswood Road parking and Berkeley Road traffic calming. Chief Weitzel. And we also have firefighter Mungia diligently keeping us safe at the podium. She was here for the prior meeting and she's still here with us. Thank you.
Good evening, President Sells, trustees, Manager Francis. I am here just to update you on two parking and traffic calming measures that were put in over the last several months at the direction of the board. You may remember that we changed the parking time limit zones and the just the parking alone on Scottswood off Berry Point and adjacent to the Riverside Presbyterian Church. And that was in front of the board several months ago. After being approved, I worked with Director Bailey to put the signage up, but we didn't just start right away. So for the first 2 weeks, the cars that would park there, we put flyers giving them notice about the new regulation, and if they didn't happen to see the sign, and that we would be ticketing in a 2-week period. During that time, I had one call from a resident on Scottswood who wanted an explanation as to how we came to enforce that parking regulation, and her main concern was, why did it end at 12 noon? So when I explained
could you hold on just a second? Can Riverside TV, can we do something about the static that we're getting in here? Okay, see if it's better now.
Pardon?
Chief Weitzel.
Do you want me to continue?
Yes,
okay,
please.
Sorry. So they just asked why it stopped at noon, and I explained to them the purpose of it was to stop the commuters from parking in that area. She was very satisfied with that, and that was it. After that, we've only issued 5 citations for violations, and we only issued those because there's only been 5 people in violations. The CSO checks that daily. So I think that's been a success. And then the next issue was the Berkeley Road traffic calming, which was in front of the board for one-way out, which would be eastbound towards Harlem. We put in do not enter signs. It's been a tremendous improvement. So the officers sat over there for the first couple of weeks, and the residents would come out and say, well, of course, nobody's going to turn down there while the marked police car's here. Well, they returned, the afternoon shift returned there, went down and talked to the residents on the block, and they said it was a tremendous improvement. While every single car is not listening to that, they estimated that there was at least a 60 to 70% improvement on the amount of cars that had to go up to Long Common to get back in. And some of the residents said that included themselves, so they did not mind having to go up to Long Common and then back over to Berkeley to come back down to Bird to get that traffic calming successful. So I think both have been successful. I've had positive comments from residents in both areas. I've received no negative comments, no negative emails since the installation of both traffic calming devices. So I just wanted to update the board, and if you have any questions, I could answer them. If not, I just wanted to make sure you knew that the ordinance that you passed is working as you envisioned it would.
Trustees, any questions for the chief? Thank you, Chief Weitzel.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll move on now to ordinances and resolutions. Yes, ma'am, please. If you could go up to the podium, please.
Hi, my name is Mary Duff, and I own the building at 2822 Harlem. I've owned it for 3 years. We have had a horrible rat problem, all right, that I have called the village on several occasions. Kim is a resident in the building. She works for CTA. She leaves at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, depending on her schedule, and has to basically go out with a net or something because of the rats running. I brought pictures of the alley from Kent to Harlem. I call the village on a constant basis. Ed Bailey's the only one that really does anything. He does send, you know, your streets and Sam, whatever you call your people, out to clean the alley, but it only happens maybe twice a summer. Right now, it looks like you're in a ghetto. All right, the vegetation is overgrown. The garbage is knee-high. The area from my building that goes out on Harlem by the gas station, we've brought pictures. When it rains, maybe we get 10 inches of water. I have the only little sewer thing that's about this big, 6 inches in diameter, for all this water to go down. And what happens is the mud goes in, so twice a year, I spend $750 to have this little sewer rotted because the village of Riverside, for some reason, doesn't want to take care of this alley. All right? Something has to be done with this. Do you want us? Does anybody want to see these pictures, or what do you want me to do?
What was the address again? What was your address?
2822 Harlem.
If you can leave those photos with us,
I can.
And we'll address it.
Thank you.
You can just give them to Clerk Haley right there.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you for coming in and letting us know.
Yeah, and then will somebody contact me, or do I have to come back?
No, you don't have to come back. Someone will contact you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So we'll move on now to ordinances and resolutions. First up is a resolution authorizing a temporary use for outdoor tents for screening in classrooms at 97 Herrick Road, St. Mary Parish, St. Mary's School. Director Abt.
Yes, St. Mary's has applied for a temporary use permit for the school due to the ongoing public health emergency. They are proposing to install 4 tents on their property to accommodate screening students and visitors before they enter the school, and also that can be used for outdoor class experiences.
I can't hear what you're saying.
Okay.
Sorry.
Alrighty. So St. Mary's is applying for this temporary use permit in order to install 4 tents on their property for the school. These will accommodate screening both students and visitors before they enter the school, and they can also be used for outdoor class experiences and lunchtime during the school day. The tents are approximately 20 feet by 30 feet and will be able to accommodate up to 15 students. They are located in some grassy areas as well as over some existing paving by doors, but none of them are proposed in any of the parking lots, and they would be used on school days Monday through Friday from 8 to 3 p.m. They are requesting to maintain this use for the duration of their school year, which is August 2020 through June 2021. According to the zoning ordinance, temporary uses that are not specifically listed in the code are require specific approval by the village board. You do have the right to impose any conditions that you want in order to ensure public health and safety. I have reviewed their application with the fire chief, and we do have some conditions, and that includes fire and building department inspections of the tents once they're installed, that the school is to perform weekly inspections of the tent to ensure they are properly secured, and to provide proof of additional insurance for the tents.
Are those conditions included in the resolution?
Yes, they are.
Okay. So I'd ask for a motion to approve a resolution authorizing a temporary use for outdoor tents for screening in classrooms at 97 Herrick Road, St. Mary Parish, St. Mary's School.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Collins.
Second.
Second by Mr. Jisa. Any comments, discussion? Please call the roll.
I'm sorry, I have
I'm sorry, Mr. Hannon.
questions.
Please.
Is there someone from St. Mary's here?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Is there somebody from St. Mary's here?
Yes, Ms. Fangman.
Great. I'm understand the need to shelter the kids going in and out of the entrances. I'd love more information about the use of the classrooms and what the mechanic is going to be as far as what's going to be put in the tents when they're having the classroom, what's going to be put in the tents. Your application says it's done by 3. Is everything going to be removed out of the tents from there? Also, you've asked from this to go continuously from August through June, notwithstanding that there's a winter break, and I find it hard to believe that you're going to have outdoor class in January and February.
Thank you. As far as your first question about furnishing the tents, there wouldn't be any permanent or even overnight furnishings under the tents. We would just bring out folding chairs as the classes use them, and then bring them back into the building when they're through. And we are proposing keeping them out there. We may not have 4 at all times. We're exploring, how many would be approved, but they are located at the entrance points where we would be screening. So the thought process was they would have sides down on 2 sides. So we're doing all of our screening of people outside, not letting them into the building until we know that they're well. So the winter use would be mostly for a little bit of weather protection while we're screening.
So by 3 o'clock, all chairs, tables, everything else will be put away and out of sight?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And was there any discussion on when school is not in session for an extended period of those coming down?
There hasn't been, but we would be open to that.
So sorry, I ran out of battery. I don't have the picture in front of me. There was a tent on the Herrick side. There was a tent on the playground side. There was a tent on the other side of the gym. And then there was a tent in the middle area. And so all 4 of those entrances are going to be actively used?
Yes, we have our arrival and dismissal procedures include, we have three of those points, not including the courtyard. The other 3 entries are typically used. We're going to continue to use those and have lines of cars coming through. 1 line coming down Herrick, 1 line coming through the parking lot from Herrick to Burlington, and a 3rd line circling our parking lot from Burlington. So the 3 entrances would be used for screening for those 3 lines of cars. The 4th is for anyone walking to school, would be directed into the courtyard and screened there.
Okay. I guess my comments would be, it sounds like these are 2-sided tents with the 3rd side abutting the building. If for some reason there is closure of the school, I would like to have those come down coterminous with any sort of extended closing of the school.
So you'd like to suggest make that a condition in addition to the resolution?
I would.
Okay. So that's a friendly. Who made the motion?
What is extended, Ed? What period of time?
I would think, if there's going to be a shutdown of more than 14 days, because I imagine there'll be 14-day quarantine periods, but if, for example, the governor says we're, closing the schools again until further notice, after 14 days, I think the anticipation is that they come down. I focus on what they're seeking here is temporary use. And, in my mind, if there's an extended period of time that these are not being used for their intended exception, they don't meet the standards of passage.
Is there an added cost to have them taken down and put back up?
No, I don't think so. We're looking to procure them and put them up and take them down ourselves.
Okay.
So that would be fine.
If I can just follow up on this, so I would assume it would be in your interest as well. I mean, if you don't have the kids coming to the school, there's no reason for the tents,
Correct.
right?
Yeah, that's a perfectly reasonable consideration.
I just don't want the school to incur additional costs So as long as that's not, I'm not opposed.
So are you fine with accepting that as a friendly amendment?
I'm accepting it if there's no additional cost to the school, yes.
You're okay with that?
I mean, I sort of feel like there's a lot going on right now for the schools and for the teachers, and to add one more thing and to bring it up or bring it down, to me, I don't really see a negative impact on having the tents up. And if we do it for St. Mary's, we probably have to do it for all the schools. And there might be different guidelines for the different schools. But I mean, I'm flexible. I just don't really see a need to bring them down. I think it's a burden just to have to take those big things up and down, especially during the winter.
So we can either do it in terms, and Attorney Mars, correct me if I'm wrong, we can either do it in terms of accepting it as a friendly amendment. If you don't want to do that, we can have a motion to amend and we can take a vote on it.
Yeah. If I can comment, President Sells. My concern, Trustee Jisa, is not just this temporary use does not just apply to schools. It applies, I'm assuming, to other educational, commercial activity in the village. So if we allow someone to put up a tent for 8 months and it's not being used towards its intended utility, what if, one of the churches wants to put up, a very large tent and keep it up, and then all of a sudden, as we saw before, church use is, large gatherings over 10 are banned again. Should that giant tent stay up? If one of our businesses wanted to put a large tent over their parking lot, and all of a sudden gatherings are no longer permitted, I mean, this is just tying to, helping them out, number one, but if it's not being used for an extended use, for its intended use, to help them out, I think it needs to come down, because we just don't want to have, the word temporary all of a sudden expanded for 10 months without any underlying rationale.
I mean, it's a valid point. I wasn't thinking that broadly, but I'm more thinking about the schools and the thought that these are going to be used to bring the kids in and out. And school might start up, it might start down. You've got some people doing e-learning, some people doing hybrid. There's so many unknowns right now. I feel like it's a burden, but if the rest of the board feels otherwise, then
Mr. Mars, am I trying to make this too easy?
Sure. Just so we're clear, this particular request applies only to St. Mary's. So each temporary use has to be separately applied for and approved. So this is not going to cause a rash of tents around town beyond St. Mary's.
Well, if I may, the question I have: what's the definition of temporary then? If we're saying for this particular use it's 10 months, if we have another group to them, how can we say it's less than 10 months?
Well, because these come to the board on a case-by-case basis. They're treated on a case-by-case basis, and the word temporary, in terms of temporary use, and what it talks about in the ordinance is just for some limited time period that you are going to decide. So if a restaurant comes to you and you don't see the need because outdoor dining season is going to terminate at November, you would treat that differently, I guess.
And that's what I'm asking for. Is if these
you're able to treat each of these individually.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just do it this way, since it's not, the friendly part's not working. So you would like to have a condition that says if the same area is closed for more than 14 days at any given time, that the tents come down.
That's what I'm at. And I would welcome feedback on if 14 or 21 is the right time. It's the quarantine period.
I assumed that the quarantine period was what you were tying it to. Yeah.
But that was merely for convenience. So if people think 30 days is better.
Ms. Collins?
I would prefer 30 days.
30 days?
I would.
I'm fine with that.
Mr. Pollock?
I understand the concern, and under normal circumstances, I would agree.
Well, hold it, but let's get a motion and a second on the amendment, okay, then we can talk about it. So we have a motion to amend to add a condition that if the school is closed more than 30 days, the tents will come down. Do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Collins. Now, Mr. Pollock.
Thank you. As I was saying, under normal circumstances, I would have the same concerns about tents and other temporary structures proliferating in the village. I think we're in pretty unique circumstances, and I think that I personally would vote in favor of this simply because it is a school. It's not a restaurant. It's not another institution, and I think a school is a unique situation, and I would like to give them the flexibility that they may need to make their own decisions in regards to putting it up and taking it down.
Other comments on the amendment?
I didn't hear what you said, Ben, I'm sorry.
Other comments on the amendment that's been offered?
I would just say that I would go along with it just because if it's an issue to someone, and I don't have any reason to think that the school would want to leave it up beyond 30 days if they're not there, because there's potential damage to the tents. So that's why I'm comfortable with the 30 days. I think it'd probably be the decision that they'd want to have anyway. So I have no problem with that, and it also leaves a precedent that temporary means temporary.
Other comments or debate on the amendment being offered?
President Sells, and I'm sorry, my phone ran out of juice. Is it part of the ordinance that the classroom activities or the classroom desks, chairs, tables come up out of hours of operation? I mean, I think that was one of the statements that they were going to do. So, again, I don't think, we want to have a precedent of table, chairs, classrooms stay out for outside from August through June, and I think they've already said that they would do that. I would just like, again, for precedent setting, we'd like to make sure that the tent's the tent, but it's not, all of a sudden we don't have permanent 24/7 personal items out there.
How does that tie into the amendment that you're offering?
It's an additional issue and just a clarification that I'm asking.
Also, you're saying that if it's
ordinance.
closed for more than 30 days, you want everything removed?
No, I'm wondering what hours of operation means. And what I heard...
Can you answer that? What hours of operation means in terms of the tables and chairs?
According to our application, our hours of operation would be the school hours of 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. But additionally, I did clarify that the intent is to only have chairs out there while the tents are being used. So even if during portions of the day when the tents are not being used, we would bring in the chairs and sanitize them before the next use. That's the intent.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, my question is that included in the ordinance that we have in front of us?
Director Abt, is that level of detail in the ordinance?
It is not.
But can I mention something on that? Just another concern. I'm not sure we really know what's going to unfold. So to put a restriction on it from 8 to 3 is, for me, again, an added burden. We don't know if these classes are going to have to be extended. The school day might have to be extended. There's just so many unknowns. And I think that considering that it's a school that, the kids are going through enough right now, and it's education. Locking it into 8 to 3 might be a little bit messy, because what happens if the students, if they have to extend the school for 2 hours, or have kids come in earlier for check-in, if they're walking into school? I mean, it's a little squirrely to me. I'm not really sure what would be helpful, or it's just so many unknowns. So to put too many restrictions.
What if it was worded, all furnishings shall be removed from the tents during non-school hours? So if school hours
that
happen
would
to
be
be
easier.
extended.
Yeah.
Mr. Hannon, is that okay?
That works for me.
And in terms of the original proposed amendment, I wrote, tents shall be removed during periods where no on-site instruction will take place on the property for a period of 30 days or more.
Okay, so that is the amendment that we're voting on right now, just with regard to the 30-day. I think there's consensus that with regard to the first part that Mr. Mars read, right, with regard to the tables and chairs will be out there during instructional hours, right? Everybody agrees to that? Yes? No?
Well, again, I don't see this as precedent setting in any way, other than for the petition that follows on tonight's agenda.
Okay.
It's a school, and I don't see this applying to anything else but a school. And if they put up the tents and they have the chairs and tables or whatever they need inside the tent from September 1st to May 30th or whatever, and it never gets moved, I'm okay with that.
Okay, so let's try this again. So right now, we're talking about the tents staying up. Set aside the tables and chairs. That apparently is going to be a separate amendment that we're going to have. So with regard to the having the tents removed if there's no instruction for a period of 30 days, that is the question before us. Okay? Is there any more discussion about that issue? Okay, please call the roll on that amendment, please.
Trustee Collins.
Before us is an amendment to set in place. Before us is an amendment to set in place a 30-day restriction.
Right,
is that
to
correct?
add that as a condition.
I agree to that. Aye.
Trustee Jisa.
No.
Trustee Gallegos.
Aye.
Trustee Pollock.
No.
Trustee Evans.
No.
Trustee Hannon.
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. Now we go back to the question of the tables and chairs. Would anyone like to make a motion to amend the resolution in accord with the language read by Mr. Mars? You want to read that again for us, Mr. Mars?
I'll make that motion if I can.
Can you read that
New
again?
condition number 5, all furnishings shall be removed from the tents during non-school hours.
Can I ask you to do it one more time? I didn't hear it.
Sure. All furnishings shall be removed from the tents during non-school hours.
So that's the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A second by Ms. Collins. Any discussion on this item? Please call the roll.
I'm sorry, could you clarify who made the motion?
I did.
Motion by Mr.
Thank you.
Hannon, second by Ms. Collins.
Trustee Collins.
Aye.
Trustee Jisa.
No.
Trustee Gallegos.
Trustee Gallegos.
I'm sorry, read the last motion. I couldn't make it out.
Can you read it one more time for Mr. Gallegos?
It's a motion to add a new condition to the resolution. All furnishings shall be removed from the tents during non-school hours.
I'm sorry, I still can't hear that. Jessica, sir, closer. Could you possibly relay that to me?
Remote learning. That's what we're
The
experiencing
new
here.
condition would read, all furnishings must be removed from the tents during non-school hours.
I would vote nay.
That's a nay.
What did he say?
He said nay.
Nay.
Trustee Pollock.
No.
Trustee Evans.
Aye.
Trustee Hannon.
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. Okay, so now we're back to the original resolution with the additional conditions that have been added. Is there any further discussion about that? Ms. Evans.
Could you describe what the tents look like? Do they have like sides, or are they just umbrella sort of tents?
They would be similar to the one that is in front of Hauser right now. So it has a top and the framing structure with removable sides. So while it's nice out, we may not put the sides on, but there are 4 sides. Typically, we would only put 2 on to allow still for airflow and traffic to go through.
And are there specific plans for use, like uses of the tents? So like on day 1 what you're going to use the tent for?
The primary use on day 1 when we put them up to would be as a checkpoint for screening as we go enter the building. And then it would be supplemental space for lunch so that students would not have to lunch in their classrooms. Mm-hmm. And also any teacher would just be able to utilize them throughout the day to get students out of their classrooms.
Okay, and so how come we can't do screening without the tents? Why are the tents needed to assist with the screening and with lunch outside? And
we can
to teach?
We can do screening without tents. These were requested initially by one of our parent groups to be able to get the children outside. The model that we have been presented for use by the Archdiocese of Chicago is the cohort model. So our cohorts cannot mix. So students are going to be limited to being in their own classrooms the entire day, and they will have to be masked. The only way they can take off their masks is if they can get outdoors and be 6 feet apart. So the tents initially were a request by parents to be able to have an outdoor space to go. We thought we would site them near the doors so that additionally we would be able to use them for screening if it was raining or something like that. They aren't 100% necessary for those things, but if we were allowed to have them, we would put them in places where we could use them for 2 different things.
So under the tent, they have to be 6 feet apart?
Yep.
So if it's like a 20 by 30 foot tent, it could fit maybe, I don't know, I'm not good at math, but like 5 or 6 people?
Well, we figured 15 people, 3 rows of 5.
Okay.
20 by 30 is roughly the same size as our classrooms.
Anything else?
I was just going to say, I assume that the point is to not have the children come into the facility with a fever or something. If you screen outside, you can prevent that contamination from coming into the school. Is that
correct? We're asking a checklist of symptom questions as they arrive and screening for temperature. Those are the 2 things that we're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Please call the roll.
Trustee Collins.
Aye.
Trustee Jisa.
Aye.
Trustee Gallegos.
Aye.
Trustee Pollock.
Aye.
Trustee Evans.
Aye.
Trustee Hannon.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you for coming
Thank
this
you.
evening and answering our questions. We appreciate it. Next up is a resolution authorizing a temporary use outdoor tents for classrooms at 86 South Coat Road, 735 Leasley Road, 61 Woodside Road, and 61 Woodside Road and 65 Woodside Road, Riverside School District 96, that comprises Ames, Blythe Central, and Hauser schools. Director Abt.
Yes, D96 operates 4 schools in Riverside. That's Ames, Blythe, Central, and Hauser. And again, similar to St. Mary's, due to the ongoing public health emergency, they're proposing to install tents at each of their schools to accommodate outdoor learning spaces to supplement their existing facilities. They'll be used for outdoor learning, lunch, and other monitored events during the school day. They could also be used for screening if needed. They are approximately 16 feet by 32 feet in size and could accommodate up to 20 people. The tents would be used Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. on most school attendance days. Similarly, they are requesting to maintain these up for the duration of the school year, which runs August 2020 to end of May 2021. I've reviewed their proposals with the fire chief. We have recommendations that the tents must comply with all the applicable fire and life safety codes, that we have to do inspections of the tents once they're installed, that the school district would perform weekly inspections of the tents to ensure they're properly secured, and also provide proof of additional insurance for those tents.
Bear with me just a second. Mr. Mars is a stickler about getting this language right, so I have to. Okay. So I'd ask for a motion to approve a resolution authorizing a temporary use for outdoor tents for classrooms for District 96, Riverside District Schools, Ames, Blythe Central, and Hauser.
Can I ask?
Let's get a motion in a second first.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Collins. Second by?
Second.
By Mr. Pollock. Mr. Jisa.
Just a couple. I'm assuming we're going to require the same standards for the public schools as St. Mary's, number one. But then the only other thing I would say, sorry, is that because of the, and you can tell I've been thinking about school a lot, but because of the unknown dates and what might happen, rather than have to force them to come back and have a hard stop on it, does it make more sense to have it run just in perpetuity with the school year, which may extend beyond May? rather than just put that hard stop of May 22nd. I'm just throwing an idea out there. So if the school year is extended because of all the craziness, right? Does it make sense not to put a specific date to that? But keep the 30-day period in there.
Is that something that is that even possible? I don't know.
Right. I mean, there's still an end date because
right
it's
now.
whenever school ends. So if that's what the board wants to do, you could phrase it that way.
I think Mr. Jisa's point is, given the vagaries of the pandemic, if the school year had to go beyond that firm date, then they'd be back in here asking again.
Yeah.
So do we want to tie it, instead of having a date certain, just tie it to the end of the school year?
Right. So instead of saying for a period of August 2020 through May 2021, it would say August 2020 through the end of the 2020-21 school year.
Right.
And that's acceptable.
Right. Yeah, that's a good idea. Is everybody okay with that?
I think also with the same 30-day closure period.
Well, we're going to get to that in just a second. Okay. So everybody's okay with that language. So is everybody okay with adding the two conditions that we just voted on for St. Mary into this resolution? Because it's going to turn up the same way as it did before.
Yeah.
So you can make us go through that if you want, or you can.
Yeah, President Sells,
Yes.
I don't think we can vote on that they can have this until the end of the school year without confirming whether we have the 30-day period. Again, my concern is, what is the definition of temporary? And if this is going to go, if school's shut down, but the 2021 school year is still technically in place, and it runs through next September, are we saying, a 13-month period is now temporary? I mean, I'd like, if they're not being used, I would like some statement in there that after 30 days they come down.
Just make a motion to amend.
Well, I thought that's what Trustee Jisa put in, saying we're going to make the same changes.
No, what Trustee Jisa wanted to do was instead of having this resolution have a date, an end date certain, he wanted to say that it would continue until the end of the academic school year. That's a separate issue than you wanting to have the tents removed if there's a shutdown for 30 days.
I guess I understood Trustee Jisa's comment that we were going to do the same for St. Mary's as we were for.
Well, it was both. It was all. It's that plus the.
So it sounded to me that his new amendment would apply to both, and would include the 30 days that we had for St. Mary's.
Is that
Correct.
what you want?
Yeah, that works.
Okay. All right. So do we need to do this formally? Do we need to have an amendment that changes the language to the academic year and then also adds in the same two conditions that we had for St. Mary?
Yes.
And is that your motion, Mr. Jisa?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
By Ms. Collins. Any further? Is that okay, Mr. Hannon? That answers your question.
Yes, it answers the question.
Any other discussion about that? Because let's vote on the amendment first. Please call the roll on the amendment.
Trustee Collins.
Aye.
Trustee Jisa.
Aye.
Trustee Gallegos.
Trustee Gallegos. Trustee Gallegos.
Continue the call.
Trustee Pollock.
Aye.
Trustee Evans.
Aye.
Trustee Hannon.
Aye.
Amendment carries. Any further discussion on the resolution itself?
Yes.
Mr. Pollock.
I just, for the record, wanted to be clear that I think, again, that we're over-regulating unnecessarily. I don't see the public interest in adding these additional restrictions, but for the sake of consistency, I think we need to do for the public school system what we did for the private school system.
Anything else? Please call the roll. I'm sorry, Ms. Evans.
I don't want to overregulate, but I did ask earlier, and I'm sorry if you responded, but I didn't get my email. I was wondering if there was a reason why the tents are in the front of Ames School and not over in the green space to the east? Why they're like right in front of the school? Does anybody know?
I think they're trying to keep it close to entrances and trying to keep it visible so that it's viewable both from the school, as well as by police or anybody to try to minimize after hours there being any sort of damage or vandalism to it. So they were just trying to weigh different options and have it be in the most convenient location for them for access.
I just have concerns that people in that neighborhood are going to complain about the aesthetics. It's just right. I mean, it's really right in front of the whole building, you know.
I assume that it was for the same purpose as what St. Mary's is, that they're screening the kids as they're coming in, so you wouldn't want it to the side. You would want it right in front of the, that's what you see at most places when they have the tents, is it's directly at the entrance.
Yeah, they said they would also be using it for that.
Do we know what they're using it for?
They said they may
lunch.
use it for screening at certain schools. They will also be using it for outdoor activities, for lunch, and for other monitored activities.
So they're not having lunch at the school.
It might be used by part of Parks and Rec Department for part of the school program. They were very insistent that it would be used as an option for lunch.
But just to piggyback on that with regards to D96 and Parks and Rec, they've written the IGA in our amendment vaguely to afford them flexibility to utilize different resources. We actually reached out to our insurance related to utilizing the tents if needed. So.
Please call the roll.
Trustee Collins.
Aye.
Trustee Jisa.
Aye.
Trustee Gallegos.
Trustee Gallegos.
Trustee Pollock.
Aye.
Trustee Evans.
Aye.
Trustee Hannon.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Director Abt. There are no considerations this evening. Does anybody have any new business? Contrary to the agenda, we do not have a need for an executive session this evening. So with that, I'd ask for a motion and a second to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Ms. Collins.
Second.
Second by Mr. Pollock. Please call the roll.
Trustee Collins.
Aye.
Trustee Jisa.
Aye.
Trustee Gallegos.
Trustee Gallegos.
Trustee Pollock.
Aye.
Trustee Evans.
Aye.
Trustee Hannon.
Aye.
Thank you. The meeting is adjourned. Good night. Take care of one another.